All right, hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of the VGF Strat Corner podcast. Very close to finishing out the T6 cast, and TTT2 is right around the corner. So looks like we might get this finished just in time. So with that being said, only three characters left. We're going to focus on one of them for this one, and it's Hwoarang for this episode. I am Scott, aka Zhang on the boards, and for the most part, I do have to kind of issue an apology to everybody. Sorry that there's been so long of a delay between episodes, but with Evo and all this other stuff going on, and with only a couple characters left, kind of getting to the nitty gritty, so it's a little difficult to get guests on sometimes. But with that being said, our guest today for this episode, pretty well known player, I would like to think, Bloodhawk from the East Coast. So without further ado, let me introduce him. What's going on, man?
Hey, what's up, dude?
So before we start getting into the specifics and all that good jazz of Hwoarang, I do like to have our guests kind of give a little background on who they are, where they come from, that sort of thing, just for any of the newer players out there who maybe don't pay attention to the tournament scene or results or stuff like that. So if you don't mind, if you give us like a little background, like where you come from, have you moved scenes or anything like that? Have you always played Tekken and that sort of thing?
Well, I'm from New York City. I've been playing there. I've been living there my entire life so far. I'm 26 right now. I started playing Tekken with Tekken 5 in 2005. But before that, the first game that I actually tried to play competitively was Soul Calibur 2. And that was when I think I was about 14 or 15. I tried entering a few local tournaments and just getting into a scene more. And I found it really fun. I found the competition it sparked something in front of me. And then when Tekken 5 came out, I just sort of jumped into that and I just started playing a lot, and trying to learn how to play the game and just making a lot of friends in the community. And Tekken 6, I tried to travel a lot. I went to a lot of tournaments, both like East and West Coast for the first couple of years. And in 2007 for Dark Resurrection, I was actually part of one of the SBO teams that competed for the U.S.
Oh, nice.
Uh,
I was
so
not aware of that. So have you? I was actually not aware of the SBO thing. But I mean, granted, I guess it's been a few years, so even I might have read it and just kind of slipped my mind. But
I teamed up with Sparrow and Mr. Knapp, so I was kind of wheel at the time. So
yeah, I know Spiro. He's as far as I know, he's kind of doing the life thing now, not really playing a whole lot of anything. I don't think, but I guess you would know more about that than I would. But
he wants to come back for Tekken Tag 2, but I hear a lot of people say that. So we'll see if he sticks it through. I'll be really happy if he does stick it out. So
yeah, he was a really good player. I actually remember when he was just coming up. The first time I ever met him was at an Evo, and he was very scrubby, very in his early stages, but it was pretty interesting to see him grow as a player and get as good as he was, and yeah, hopefully he'll come back to Tag 2. You're absolutely right. There's a lot of people saying that. We'll see how many people actually stick to their word there, but definitely a lot of people hype for Tag 2, that's for sure. So I guess that's a pretty good segue to kind of go into our character discussion. I mean, I know that we're talking about T6, but Tag 2, it's gonna the same sort of engine, for T6. So with some exception of some mechanical stuff like with the tag system, for the most part, the character is gonna remain intact. So hopefully these podcasts are still relevant when that game comes out. But so for T6, since we don't have a ton of information on Tag 2 quite yet. So I always like to start for our characters kind of a broad scope sort of perspective. For Hwoarang, where do you see his strengths and where do you see his weaknesses?
um, hmm. I guess for Hwoarang, his strengths come from being able to force the opponent into a lot of different guessing situations. Like if you get a little bit of frame advantage, you can sort of force a sort of series of mini guesses. And if you want to play it safe, you can sort of poke it out a little bit, poke their life bar away little by little, and then if you can frustrate or agitate them enough to the point where they're gonna press a button in a wrong situation, you can get a counter hit for like into a combo for really like a lot of different, uh, a lot of damage. But you can be paid both ways. Uh, the weakness, and it's everything I'm probably going to say is going to have like the sort of two heads of the coin argument. You know, something is good, but something is also bad. When basically the strength from Hwoarang comes from the opponent not knowing what you're doing. If the opponent does their research, and it's a lot of research, so you know there'll still be things that maybe you could surprise them with. But the more things they know about your Hwoarang when you play against them, the effectiveness sort of goes down. So, like, if they know not to be scared in a certain situation, like a lot of the situations where people think that Hwoarang has a big advantage, it's sort of like a fake advantage, and it's just out of lack of character knowledge. So the more they know, like some characters that are just good, like even if you know how to get out of a certain situation, or a certain setup, the setup can still be good. It's just that you know how to deal with it. Hwoarang, it's like a lot of stuff is fake, or a lot of stuff is not as scary once you know, like, I don't block low, or I don't block high in this situation. So it gets kind of annoying when you play somebody that knows what you're doing. Um, uh, but like I said before, if you can get a counter hit or anything of that sort, or a good launch, he does have amazing damage output. It's been nerfed since Tekken 5, which it was even bigger in Tekken 5. But you know, if he has rage and a wall available, he can easily like maybe 80% you with like a one good hit or something. So that's still he's even if he's not as good as the characters other, he still has damage output to be respected.
Gotcha.
And um, let's see. He has decent frame advantage. So even if the on certain moves, so even if the opponent knows what you're doing, there's certain points. There's still a handful of situations where the opponent has nothing to do but block or guess what you're gonna do. And I guess another weakness is that, in my opinion, his lows are pretty poor and his tracking is pretty poor, even with the inclusion of giving every character two or three homing moves. Like I feel like his homing moves in this game aren't very effective, so he still has a little bit of tracking issues. So random sidestep can still if you just decide to random sidestep on Hwoarang a lot, you can still get a decent payoff, even if you don't know which side is the weak side. Like if you just I'm just gonna randomly sidestep this way in this situation, so it can pay off a lot for you if you're fighting him. So
That's pretty crazy. Well, okay, so I guess let's what you just said. Let's kind of break that up into separate topics. I'm sure the Hwoarang lovers are going to want us to talk about his offense and his good stuff first. So I guess let's start there. So you're talking about how putting an opponent into these even if it's a fake advantage situation, trying to force them into a guess where they can potentially guess wrong. So how would you go about like starting that sort of offense?
Well, basically, all that Hwoarang needs to start any sort of offense is basically to hit a move that goes into a flamingo stance. So it's either be like jabs, or like a down back four, or like a wall standing 4-4, something like that, into right foot forward stance, something like that. Basically, if you hit one of those moves, like for example, if I hit you with a 1-2 and then I go into either flamingo stance, I'm at +7. So basically, if you try to hit buttons and I know you're going to hit buttons, I basically can do whatever I want and counter hit you. So, and then if I know if I've counter hit you before and now the second iteration you don't want to press buttons, then I can sort of like poke you with his with down 3-4 out of left foot forward or left flamingo stance. It's the low high that goes into right flamingo, and then I can sort of jab to have frame advantage to go out of flamingo, or I can try to do right flamingo down 4-3, which is basically the mirror notation for down 3-4, and I can just sort of poke away at you, and then I can just agitate you to the point, like I said before, where you're just like, I'm tired of taking all these minuscule pokes. I just want to attack you, and then it's the Hwoarang player's job to sort of gauge his opponent's frustration level, and he's like, all right, I think this guy is agitated enough, so I'm going to throw out like uh, a counter hit move, like let's say right flamingo stance 4 is like this mid kick that on counter hit causes the stomach crumple stun. And then if that hits counter hit and they don't break it, then I can either bound you on the spot for a combo, or I can float you for a wall juggle or something like that. So it's just like those little scenarios where you're like either going for something big that might be punishable, or you're just poking away at little things. Like down back 4 is a couple of plus. But down back 4 in this game actually got a decent buff in the sense that it doesn't stagger on block anymore. It used to, ever since the move came in, like it would stagger, like, you know, this, I never understood it. It was like this move that was like considered, it was supposed to be like a low poke, but you block it and it's like you just blocked the hell sweep. That's how punishable it was.
Yeah.
So they changed that so it doesn't make that stagger anymore. So an interesting little buff in this game is that if you block down back 4, but I go into flamingo stance, I'm at neutral. I'm at 0. It's not punishable. And if Hwoarang has these little like little slap kicks in either flamingo stance, and a new move in this game was that those slap kicks now have an extension that launches, and then the string is counter hit. So and those kicks are 10 frames. So, and most characters' fastest while standing option is 11 frames. So if you block my down back 4 and you try to respond with a while standing option, and I know you're going to do that, then I can beat out your while standing option for a launch. The downside of that is that the entire string it's high, high, high. So, and it's counter hit only. So if you block the highs, or if you get hit with the highs but it's not a counter hit, and there's no way to counter hit confirm the string. If you do that and you duck the high that is actually the launcher, then I get launched. So it's a bunch of little guessing games like that you have to try to do with your frame advantage.
Gotcha. Yeah, I guess you could sort of like semi hit confirm it, like if you think you saw them moving or something like that. You know, it's interesting that you bring up the down back 4-4, because I do remember when it used to give that huge launch punishable stagger on block, and yeah, it never really gave like anything ridiculous to warrant that, because even if you hit the full down back 4-4, even on counter hit, unless there was a wall involved, it wasn't leading to like ridiculous damage or anything like that.
Yeah.
So when you're trying to start this offense, then you mentioned jabs and then down back 4. Is that like the state of mind that you're usually in, is just doing pokes into flamingo, or are there like maybe other things that, like maybe big hitters that go into flamingo?
In terms of big hitters, it's not a lot of stuff. A lot of the big stuff is just sort of generic whiff punishing, like just frame skyrocket. So I think I'll wait until a little bit more to talk about the whiff punisher aspects. But a lot of the transitions into flamingo are usually punishers or little pokes. So like you basically do jabs into flamingo, and then you try to start some sort of significant offense, or you do like a down back 4 into flamingo, or you do while standing 4-4 into right foot forward, and you try to start something from there. And then maybe you like after you do while standing 4-4, you're at a couple of positives, and on hit it forces them into crouch. So again, if they try to respond with like a while standing move, you can do like right foot forward 2-4, which is like jab high kick, and then you go into right flamingo. So it's like a lot of the transitions into flamingo are like these little poke strings, and then once you go into flamingo, then you get an access to a lot of more heavy hitting moves.
Gotcha. So okay, so then I guess let's talk about once you get into flamingo. Then you mentioned earlier how you have some of the fake advantage situations, and then you mentioned that there are actual legitimate situations where you're stuck in this 50-50. So the example that you had just gone over, the down back 4 example, and then you can follow up with the 10 frame kicks if you think they're going to try to attack. That sounds like it's one of those fake advantage situations. But well, actually, I guess you're trying to bait somebody into doing that from a
Yeah,
from a line.
it's basically a bait,
Yeah.
and you have to see how they respond. Like basically, it's the way I play them is that I try like if I was playing in a tournament situation, let's say I would, and I was playing Hwoarang first, like the first game. I would try to make that first game last as long as possible. Obviously, I'm still intending to win, but let's say let's like if it's like 3 out of 5 rounds, I would try to make sure I would try, it's sometimes like you get scared or you get panicked, like I gotta win this like as fast as possible if you get scared or something. But if it's possible, I would try to make that my win, but win like 2 rounds, 3 rounds to 2, and I would try to make that game last as long as possible, and I would be like gathering information on my opponent. I would like do like down back four, and if he blocks it, I wouldn't do the counter hit I wouldn't go for the counter hit situation right away. I would do like some slower move, and I would see if they try to beat me out. And if they try to beat me out, then that's just information I have for a later time. And then if I really need to get the counter hit move, it's something you store in your mind. Like, okay, now I really need to get damage somewhere. So then I would try to force that same situation, and under the assumption that that person will respond the same way. And if they do respond the same way, then I get the launch. If they don't, then there's still the opportunity that maybe they just block the move and they don't duck it or something like that. So, but definitely I spend the first game gathering as much data as possible to try to just to know tendencies. It's really important with Hwoarang as opposed to other characters to try to figure out what your opponent's tendencies are, because you have to force them into a lot of guessing games. But it's a lot of guessing games where one option, if they guess it correctly, can end up bad for you, and that's something that doesn't happen a lot for some higher tier characters. Like a lot of higher tier characters can have mix ups where it can still be sort of win-win for them.
Mm.
And for Hwoarang, it's unfortunately, in my opinion, it doesn't end up that way a lot. So
I see. It's funny that you mentioned the extending the length of the match. Because we've mentioned many times on the podcast, you use those first rounds or that first match or whatever it is, to gather information, like you said, and learn your opponent's tendencies. But it's interesting the way that you put it, because it sounds like it's actually working twofold for you, where not only are you gathering these tendencies, but because you're in a way intentionally trying to drag out the match. You mentioned, how the whole idea with this style of offense is to kind of get your opponent to kind of get flustered from all these pokes and stuff that they're taking. So I think that, I mean, it sounds like that's actually working towards that goal, because even though you won, even if you win the match, there's still those 2 rounds where maybe they had to deal with that, and there's still overall. It's like a pitcher. If you throw more pitches, you're going to get tired out sooner, so to speak. So I don't know if that's if that's intentional or if that's just like an indirect result. Or
that ends up being part of it, and it's another thing that I enjoy doing. That I enjoy using that sort of strategy is that I like to make the opponent think that sometimes the match is legitimately close, but if it's somebody that I know I can beat, sometimes I just like to make it so uh, I like to make them think that maybe the first game was closer than it appears. And like a lot of people, like a lot of players, if they play multiple characters, they have a tendency, like if you blow them out of the water the first game, they have a tendency to switch characters. And then with a character like Hwoarang, it's kind of bad, because even though you have the player tendencies, some people play differently when they have a different character, or you can't do certain things to certain characters with your character. Just in general, in Tekken, you have to play characters differently. So I like to kind of like, I guess the best way to say it is like I kind of like put them on a leash and like not like make them think that they have to switch characters, or that I like to make them think they're in a better situation than they really are. And then maybe in the second game, I turn it up a little bit and I get a little aggressive, or I start forcing more damaging mix-ups. And then maybe in the second game, I'll actually try to 3-0 them or something. And then if they switch, and let's say it's a 3 out of 5 tournament game, like 3 out of 5 sets, then they're two. If I've won the first two games, then they're 2-0 in the hole if they try to switch. So if they try to switch, then they can't switch again if I beat them again. So it's just like little strategies and psychology that you try to force on somebody.
Gotcha. So it kind of sounds like that can be a little bit risky at times. If do you always employ that strategy? Say if you're going up against like a more top level player, somebody who's in a broad sense considered uh, uh, a really good player. I mean, just from New York, just to use an example, like if you were to go up against like a GM, would you employ that kind of strategy still, since there's a bigger chance that maybe they'll take what you're giving them and and just abuse it?
It depends on the flow of the match, and also against somebody like if it's a top known player and I know they have character loyalty, then I don't really have to fear the character switching scenario. And basically, I also have to see how like I basically make the adjustment sort of mid game. Like if they win the first round or something, and then obviously I'm in a round hole, I still want to win the first game. So maybe I'm just like, okay, they've won the first round. I should just try to win 3 rounds straight. Otherwise, I'm being too risky. Or if every round is being really close, then maybe I'll turn it up midway through game one. Like it's definitely you have to make a reassessment of how you're playing. Like every round. Like once the round ends, you have to like make that quick, adjustment. Like how did that round go? Like you have like it's maybe like 3 to 5 seconds that you really have to think about it, but you have to think about it on the spot. Like did this work, or do I think I've got him trained to block low a lot? Maybe I should go for a mid launcher. It's definitely a reevaluating of the situation constantly when you play.
Gotcha. So I guess let's kind of backtrack just a little bit and go back to these situations. I'm sure that there's a huge list of them, but give us like maybe another I don't know 2 or 3 of like the bait sort of situations, or maybe the fake advantage situations that you were talking about, where there's not really an advantage, but there's a perceived advantage. Like once you're in Flamingo, of course. Like what sorts of other options does he have?
Okay, so let's starting off with like a generic. Let's like I block a hop kick or something, and I punish with 1-2. If I go into Flamingo, I'm at +7 or so. So if I can do another jab, I can just end Flamingo immediately by doing like a one jab if I'm in left Flamingo, or right jab if I'm in right Flamingo, whatever. And that will give me +2 or so on block. But it's high, so if the opponent thinks I'm going for a high, obviously they can high crush me. So that's something to be afraid of. I can do jabs into right Flamingo, and then I can do, let's say, Flamingo axe kick, right Flamingo down forward 4. And if they duck because they want to high crush, or they just want to duck my jabs or whatever, then that's a juggle starter, so I can get a juggle off it. But it's sidesteppable. So if they sidestep, then I'm open. Same thing with and then I forget how many frames that move actually. It might be it might be like 18 frames. So if I'm at +7 off Flamingo, that means they can still jab me out of it. So it's like a bunch of little scenarios where I have to like each option I do maybe covers like two situations, but there's still 1 or 2 ways for the opponent to get out of it.
And I presume in a situation like that, when you say sidestep, it really doesn't matter what side.
No, not really. Most likely in that situation, you'd be sidestepping right, I believe. But Hwoarang has poor tracking in general, so if you can just go into practice mode and have him do moves and just guess which way to sidestep, and it'll work out for you for him. But if you don't want to go for big damage and you don't want to, let's say I'm doing jabs, but it's not a punish. Like I'm just trying to start some sort of offense. So like I do 1-2 and they block it. And I can, instead of going into Flamingo, because they've blocked my jabs, so now instead of being at advantage, I'm at disadvantage. But I could go into Flamingo potentially. I could do 1-2 forward 3, which is he does jabs and then he does a mid kick instead of actually going into Flamingo. And what that does is that if they try to beat you out because they blocked your jabs and they assume they can do something, the mid kick will hit and it'll hit counter hit. and it does a pretty good chunk of damage. It sparks, so it does at least like 24 plus. So I'm gonna say maybe around 27 damage. And that's you do that sort of move just to like say, hey, you block my jabs, but I still have options to keep you in check. And that string is actually one of the things I use to end rounds a lot, because when somebody has low life and they see you going to flamingo on block or something, they just want to like, obviously like if they have to guess and they have low life, the odds are against them, so they just want to press buttons to get at. So like you do 1, 2, 4, 3, and they end up trying to like duck jab you or something to try to stop you, and that ends up counter hitting them, and that ends up ending rounds a lot for me. And there's other things you can do. You can do 1, 2, or and every time I say 1, 2, you can also just do standing 2 into either flamingo, and it's the same advantage. But just 1, 2 does more damage, and I just use it more often. But it's just a FYI to people that are listening.
Oh, gotcha.
But you can go into left flamingo, and then you can just do left flamingo threes, and they're just like these little mid pokes. And then what you can do is that when you press 3 and then you hold forward, and then he does the kick, but he stays in flamingo. So you can just do a couple of iterations of that just to sort of you know bother the opponent or just buy time. But again, that can be sidestepped. So um,
They can still be really
uh,
annoying though.
yeah,
I
it can be
can tell
really
you
annoying.
that.
And then like I said before, like you have mids. You can most of the stuff I'm saying is mids, but at any point you can do down 3-4 or down 4-3 depending on which stance you're in, and that's a low high, but it jails on hit. So if they get hit with the low, they can't duck the high. So if they're not ducking already, that means and then when the high hits, it's frame advantage. So it's frame advantage on block. So it's a way to transition it's a way to transition in between flamingo stances, be, because one of the general philosophies that I've noticed about Hwoarang is that when you're in left foot forward or left flamingo, his kicks, because the punches are generically the same. His kicks are more poking oriented, but when you're in right foot forward or right flamingo, I call it like the power stance, because a lot of the moves there are more juggle starters or just more you do a lot of more damage. So basically, like you'll use something like down 3-4 at a left flamingo, go into right flamingo, and at that point you'll try to do some sort of counter hit move, or you'll go into left flamingo if you just want to apply a little bit more poking pressure. So that's another sort of way you have to think about things. And then at any point, if like you're in flamingo and you think they're gonna like try to attack you with highs, then you just do the flamingo sweep, which it high crushes. It's launch punishable, but it goes into a big combo. Or not a big combo, but like a float juggle. So at any point, like if you think like, okay, this guy is just sick and tired of this, especially if it's a character that has like a magic 4 or something, and they want to magic 4 you out of everything, then you just high crush it and you sweep them for a combo. But then it's launch punishable, so you have to, at all points, you have to like, is doing this worth it? That's the sort of mentality you have to think when you're playing.
Gotcha. So when you're doing like trying to decide doing or you're doing your flamingo game going back and forth, I presume that it's just pretty much a style preference, whether or not you stay in right flamingo or right foot forward, or vice versa. Do you usually or is there one that's just by far you should be in that stance more than the other?
It's definitely it's a style preference. If you want to, if you're ready to go for some sort of big damage, then that's when you sort of use one of your transitions into right flamingo, because right flamingo has the axe kick that is a juggle starter. It has right flamingo 4, which is a counter hit juggle starter. It has, well, both of them have the sweeps. It has right flamingo back 3, which is sort of this he sort of spins and then does this mid kick that launches as well. And then if you just want to stay with the poking offense, you'd go into left flamingo, and that's when you can do, like I was saying, standing left flamingo 3 into forward, stay in that stance. The axe kick in left flamingo has frame advantage, and it has a little trick where if you hit a crouching opponent with it, it's plus 14. And then you can do up forward 3+4 4, which is a new move in Tekken 6. It's basically it's a jumping sort of three kick string that's exactly 14 frames. So if you notice, if you get that on a crouching opponent, it's basically a free damage. So and then uh, so everything in like left flamingo is pokey, but it's relatively safe. And a lot of the stuff in right flamingo is going to get you high damage, but it's unsafe. Like right flamingo 4 is like -14, and right now everything I'm saying is like Hwoarang players are going to be like, no, don't tell them this stuff. This is how we make our money by this is how we make our living by having people not know what's punishable and what's not punishable. But for the sake of people listening, I'm going to tell people. And then right flamingo back 3 is like -14. So like if you're fighting like a Mishima or something, like let's say you're fighting Asuka, you doing those sorts of moves has less risk because she doesn't have a good -14 Punisher. But if you're fighting a Mishima with good execution, or if you're fighting Brian, or if you're fighting Lars, or people with launchers at -14 or really strong -14 Punishers, then doing those moves become a greater risk, and you have to weigh that. So it becomes more of an uphill battle when you like guess wrong. Like you think someone is going to press a button at that point, so you try to go for a counter hit right flamingo 4, and they block it, and then all of a sudden you're in the air, and then it's like you just go like F my life, why am I playing this character, that sort of thing. But that's it's basically it's the life you lead when you play Hwoarang against certain characters, and you have to take those risks into account.
Gotcha. So I guess we're talking about like all these stance switches in this kind of poking game. Aside from the occasional counter hit that you want to go for. Out of curiosity, how do grabs like factor into this whole strategy?
Let's see, cause I said a while back that I don't consider Hwoarang's lows very good. So part of that what the obvious consequence of that is that when you have good lows, when you have bad lows, but you have a lot of counter hit and normal hit juggle starting mids, is that a rational player just goes, well, I just don't have to duck. So why would I duck? If I duck, I get launched. If I don't duck, I take these little pokey lows, and I can just deal with it at some other point. So the throws factor in to try to incentivize people to duck, because even good players can break throws. But if you throw a lot and you try to set up some sort of fake pattern in yourself, like if you can throw a lot, you can throw the opponent a lot to incentivize them to duck. Because even if someone breaks a lot of throws, if they think you're going to throw in a certain situation, at least to me, the proper response is I could break the throw, but if I really think the throw is coming out, I can just duck and launch it. So I throw people a lot to try to incentivize them to duck, and then I try to recreate the situation where I threw them previously, and then I'll go for a launcher. So throws become, instead of like, throws can be free damage if they don't break them, but what I really want you to do is start ducking, similar to how someone would play if they were playing King or Armor King or Roger. Like the Giant Swing and the Ancient Signing Wizard, that's good stuff, but what you really want to do is you want to frustrate somebody into ducking, and then you want to hop kick them. At least that's the way I see the characters, how they should be played. So his throws are pretty average. Like you get pretty good mixes on. Like off his one throw, it leaves them pretty far away, but it leaves them face down, feet towards you. So one setup that I have is after a successful one throw, I do up forward 3+4 4, the move I was talking about before, the jump string, and if they get up straight, it'll hit them in the back. But what I really want them to do is I want them to stay down, and what that string does then is that most of the time, sometimes it bugs out and it doesn't work, but most of the time I'll jump over you. But I'll jump over you just far enough that if you try to respond with a wake-up kick, it'll whiff. And then I can do a back turn. He has a whichever foot he has forward, he has a back turn launch option where he just does something that looks like his back three, which is basically a kick launcher where he just puts his kick he puts his foot his leg really high up in the air and he launches you. But so it's like a back turn version of that. So it's basically I jump over you, you think I whiffed the move I want to hit you with, but what I really want you to do is respond with a get up kick, which is gonna whiff, and then I get a free launcher. So sometimes it works. It's like one of those things that works once a match,
Yeah.
but if you're getting that once a match launcher, that can be the difference between you winning the set or not. So it's still pretty good. Um, Off his two throw, I guess I just list all his throws and what I do with them.
Okay, sure.
So off his two throw, it leaves you face up, head towards right in front of me. So what I can do is I can get a forward forward three, which is this big mid kick that hits grounded, and it does a chunk of damage, like 25 damage.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And you can roll out of that. And I can also hit you with back three on the ground. Normally back three doesn't hit grounded, but in that weird scenario angle, it does. You can also roll out of that. But if I wait for your roll, I can still hit you with it. And if you try to get up straight in that scenario, since you're head towards, you'd get a back turn. And if you get a back turn, I can hit you with down back four. And then if you hit somebody with down back four in the back, it trips on normal hit. So what you can do is you get down back four, and then when they fall to the ground, you just do down back 4/4, and it's a little chunk of damage. And if you miss, they get up safe. It's one of those few situations where Hwoarang, you can just make a guess, and if it doesn't work out, he's not boned. His 4/4/2 it's a two break throw. It's basically the roll and choke, where he rolls you onto the ground and he breaks your neck. That Beck has, and he's had it since Tekken Tag, I think,
Yeah.
or Tekken 3.
Yep.
So in that situation, you're back turned, and if the opponent moves, you can do the get up kick launcher, and if they roll away, it'll float them, but if they get up straight, it'll launch them, but if they lay still, it'll whiff. So the option that I use to hit them on the ground is I fox step, which explaining would probably take longer than this podcast would allow. Exactly how to fox step, but basically when you fox step, and Hwoarang can do it, Ling can do it, I think maybe one or two other characters can do it, is you basically do moves you trick the game into making you think that you're facing forward when you're not, is the basic premise of the fox step. So I fox step, and then I do this back turn low sweep move, and that'll hit on the ground. And I believe it would be back turned down four is the sweep. People just want to go into training mode and see what it looks like. Hwoarang has a lot of moves, so
Yeah.
at some point I'm just gonna start saying notations, and no one is gonna know what I'm talking about. But I'm gonna keep going, and then maybe somebody can listen while they're playing or something, and try this stuff out.
Yeah, no, we assume that when people listen to a podcast, they have at least a basic knowledge of the the move list for the characters. So
Yeah, but like when you start having characters like Ling or Lei or stuff, and then you start getting into stances and back turn stances and stuff, I imagine it gets really overwhelming. That's why I'm like preemptively apologizing to the.
Yeah, and as far as the fox step thing goes, yeah, I mean you did explain it perfectly. For those who are interested in knowing how to do fox step, definitely hit up the boards. It's something that takes a little bit of practice and reading up on to figure out how to do it. But yeah, definitely not something that we have to go over necessarily here. So yeah, so you had forward 2, and then does he have any other command grabs?
He has a couple more actually. He has two more. He has three. Two. Has four more actually. I'm sorry. He has a forward 2+3, which is the cannonball throw, which he just jumps onto you. He jumps over you and kicks you in the back of the head, and that doesn't really have any follow-ups. But it's a 1+2 grab, so it's decent in that. And you can both the forward 2 and the forward 2+3 you can do out of wave dash. So you can sort of wave dash into somebody's face and throw them, or you can wave dash, sidestep low, or wave dash, skyrocket. So you can try to force some sort of offense that way. And he has quarter circle back three, which is a command throw, and it does more than his normal one throw. So it's the one I use more often when I'm up close. And that's basically, it leaves you head toward face up, head towards right next to him, so you can get like a low poke or something. And he has coral circle back 1+3, I believe it is, if I'm remembering correctly. It's another throw that just sort of throws you down at, these throws you down right in front of him, try to get a little extra damage. And then the last throw he has is out of it's right foot forward only, and it's either 1+3 or 2+4. It's the same command, and it's this does a lot of I think it does maybe 45, 50 damage, where he basically puts you on his foot, and he basically slams you into the ground behind him. And that throw is kind of situational. Like, you have to put them, because there's no, you can only do it in right foot forward, and if you run at somebody, like, you can just do, the only thing you can do in right foot forward that doesn't break stance is like a little dash forward. So if you like try to run, or if you duck or something, you break stance. So it's situational on when they get the throw. But if you are in right foot forward and somebody's not ducking, then it's always an option, and it does really good damage. So those are all his throws. They have situational follow-ups. They can have little setups. So it's just stuff that you play around with. I'm pretty sure there's other like little mix-ups or scenarios that other people do that I don't. So just if you want to pick them up, just play around and see what you can get on wake up, because they mostly all have decent wake up opportunities. So.
Well, I guess since you're bringing the topic up, I mean, I know that we're talking about it with just grabs, but we might as well talk about it in general. But his wake up in his Oki game. Now, as far as I mean, I'm not a Hwoarang expert or anything by any means, but I know a lot of people use the down 4-3 or down 3-4, whichever stance you're in, as kind of like a generic relaunch pickup. What other like really scary Oki options does he have after, say, I don't know, like just a standard B&B juggle?
If they stay down on the floor, like a forward 4-3, or right forward 4-3 is like a regular spinning axe kick, and then that hits grounded, and then right foot forward 3 is the jumping axe kick that is also a bound move, and those both hit grounded. So, and they both have the hit sparks, so they do like 24, 25, whatever plus damage. So you can use that to sort of dissuade people from staying down. And regular forward 4-3 has it's like +7 on block, so you can use that if they stand up and block mid, and you can use that to sort of restart your offense again, because they're +7. It has that guard break sort of block stun on them, so like they know when somebody gets block stat, they kind of know visually that I shouldn't press buttons at this point, so you can start trying to run a poke offense on them again. If you can also hit them with down back 4 on the floor hits, down back 3 hits. If you're hitting them with low pokes on the ground on wake up, and then they want to get up and block low, you obviously have any mid launcher of choice, like I just frame Skyrocket if you can do it, since it's relatively safe to most characters. One setup that I do is actually, I consider it pretty dirty. I do a regular juggle into bound, and I'm not gonna do the notations since it's gonna be a million little notations into stand. So just go on the TZ forums and just look at juggle topics or whatever juggle you use. And normally their bound ender is what they dash up, they press 3+4 to switch to right foot forward, and then they do backlash, which is the right foot forward 3 smear 4, or however people pronounce when they 3 tilde 4.
Yeah, the tilde.
I usually say smear. I usually just say like smear.
Yeah,
like 3.
Yeah, I think most people say like smear or slide or something.
Yeah, slide is also the other way. So like you do like 3 slide 4, you do backlash, and then you do right foot forward back 4. That's usually the generic ender you see a lot of people do. What I do sometimes is that I do I do crouch dash while standing 4-4, and you have to hit the while standing 4 in a very specific way. Basically, you have to make the first part of the while standing 4 whiff, and then the second part is going to spike them right down in front of you. If the first part of while standing 4-4 hits, then it doesn't work. I don't know why, but you basically spike them with the second hit right in front of you, and if they try to stand up or roll back, if they try to quick stand right in front of you, if you do right foot forward back two, which is like this little punch that bounds, and if they quick stand, that will bound. Like they can't stand up if you just do it. Like they can't block it, they can't stand block it, and then you get like another mini juggle because you bounded them right in front of you. So I bust that out once or twice, and then if they stay down, you can just hit them with right foot forward, forward 4-3, which is the axe kick. So it's another little mix up that you can force on somebody.
Is that back two relatively safe if say they just sit there?
Yeah, it's a little bit of recovery, but at that point, all they can really hit you with is a get up kick, so it's a relatively riskless option.
Gotcha.
So
All right, and
uh,
that sounded like a lot of Oki options. Although, kind of to go back to something you said earlier, I presume he doesn't have like any moves that like take care of a majority of the situations or anything like that. It's always this option will cover these two situations, this one will cover these two, and that sort of
yeah, a lot of the time, a lot of the mix-ups, there's usually at least one way to get out of the mix-up, probably scot-free, and it's up to the opponent obviously to know how to what the option is, and then if it's up to the Hwoarang player, like if to adjust their playstyle when they see that the opponent sort of knows what your tricks are. Because if you can know how to get out of the situation, but then if I know that you know, then that just adds another level of the mind game, and it makes it fun for me as a player because you know I'm sure I'm sure there's lots of players that don't care about having a challenging fight, and they are perfectly fine picking like tricky characters and just stomping on people that don't know what they're doing. But I enjoy when I see somebody that knows Hwoarang because then it makes me have to think. And there's lots of times where you can just you know mash buttons and just win with a lot of tricky characters like Hwoarang or Beck or Capos, but when you have an opponent that knows what you're doing, then that's when playing the game for me actually becomes really satisfying. So
gotcha. Nice. Okay, well, we're talking about the juggles and the Oki stuff and setups. So we sort of mentioned it earlier, so we might as well bring it up and talk about it a little bit. But the whole punishing thing now, it sounds aside from your the random times where you go ahead and take a chance and try to get a juggle out of the flamingo pressure. It sounds like a lot of your juggles are probably going to come from like maybe a whiff punishing scenario or something
mhm.
along those lines. So what sorts of options does he have aside? We mentioned back three, but aside from that, what does he have really for like whiff punishing?
Depending on the risk that you want to take and how good your execution is, and the second part is a little bit more important because of one of the moves that we're going to talk about. But depending on the distance, if they whiff up close and you want something that's fast, then you can just do his generic down forward two, which is just the basic uppercut launcher. A high crush is a high crush is okay. 15 frames, that sort of thing, safe on block. Um, for further away, you can do back three, which is 17 frames, but it's minus 15 on block. So if you mess up the punish, then you get and they block it, you probably get launched yourself, and you feel really dumb about yourself. And then if your execution is on par, and this is important, you can always do just frame skyrocket, which is basically the easiest way to compare it to something else would be saying it's Hwoarang's electric, except it's mid. And I'm pretty sure when people hear that at first, they think it's ridiculous, but it's actually not that bad. It's I think at fastest, it might be 17 frames or 18 frames fastest. It's mid. It does a chunk of damage. It's basically his strongest launcher, and so it leads into his strongest struggles because it launches so high up. And it's minus 12 on block. And A lot of characters in previous Tekkens couldn't launch it except for King's back one, but that changed. Like a lot of characters got decent far-reaching 12-frame punishers like Lars and Bruce, and then King got the extension off of back one, so you can do back one too. So there's a lot more characters that can actually, it's not a launch, but it's going to be like a hefty punish if you block it. So if you're trying to force a mix-up or something and they block your skyrocket, then you know you get punished for it, which is fair. I think it's fair, but the important part is that you get the execution to do the just frame skyrocket, which is the one that has the sparks in the beginning. Because if you do regular skyrocket, that thing is launch punishable and it's slower and just bad. And it's something that you have to practice. I consider it's harder than Kazuya and Devil Jin's electrics, and I think it's on par with Heihachi's in terms of the frame leeway you have. I think Heihachi's electric compared to the other Mishimas, you have like a 2 or 3 frame window to actually get the electric to come out, and I think Hwoarang's just frame skyrocket is the same. So if you don't want to practice skyrockets, but you want to practice something else, then something I do a lot is I just play Heihachi and I do electrics, and I also try to do Omen Thunder Godfists. And it's just a change of pace if you just want to replace one hard move for another to practice your execution. But definitely, I think Just Frame Skyrocket is his whiff punisher of choice if you get your execution up. And I'm lazy, unfortunately. I don't practice a lot, so I have days where I do like 9 out of 10 Just Frame Skyrockets, and then I have days where I don't do any. And on the days where I don't do any, and it's a tournament day, I just go, well, I'm probably not going to use Hwoarang in the tournament today, because that's really how important I think the move is. I mean, I can manage without it. He has a lot of. You can just if your reactions are on point, you can just replace back three with just frame skyrocket. But if you mess it up, you get launched. So you know.
Yeah.
So, but
my biggest problem with the skyrocket, just real quick, in case anyone else is having troubles with it. I played Mishimas for a long time, and it's really ingrained in my execution to include the down. And in order to get the just frame skyrocket, you can correct me if I'm wrong on this, but I'm like 99% certain that you can't do down. You have to go straight to down forward.
Yeah, it's forward, neutral, down, forward.
Yeah, and that's the problem that I always had. Like, I have a problem with Omen Godfist or Thunder Godfist as well, for the exact same reason, just because I can do it fast enough, and my the 1 in that case, or the 4 in Skyrocket's case, the down forward and the input, the button input, that's fine, but it's always for getting rid of the down. Like, I keep pressing down, so that's my biggest problem. But it's really important to go from neutral to down forward. So.
Yeah, basically, if you're practicing, the easy guideline to see how you're messing up when you're doing the just frame skyrocket is if you're trying to do a just frame skyrocket and down 4 comes out, then you just did forward, neutral, down 4, and you never went to down forward. And if you do a regular skyrocket, that just means you did, forward, down, down, forward. And if you just do a down forward 4, then you did it too slow. So if you just do forward, neutral, down, forward, and just down forward 4 comes out, then you just didn't do it fast enough. So that's that's a way to just look at it and see, like, am I doing it too slow? Am I pressing down, or am I just doing the notation incorrectly when you're practicing? Just a tip for people that want to practice.
Gotcha. Okay, so, and it sounded like you were going to say something else before.
Actually, I forgot. I think I was just gonna mention that how you can manage without doing just frame skyrocket if you have fast enough reflexes with back 3, and if you want to play it that way, it's fine. And while you're practicing your just frame skyrockets, just make sure you're fast enough on the draw to punish something.
Gotcha. So along those same lines, I would like to run through like his block punishment real quick, because I know he has jabs at 10, and then they gave him the you've mentioned it a few times, the up forward 3+4 for 14. In between there, I guess, what does he have at 12? Because it sounds like you'd want to you'd want to try to keep the flamingo pressure on, but I don't know if he has something special at 12. And then 15, I would imagine you'd probably just go for the down forward 2.
Yeah. On basically for 12 he has a 4-3, which is just a high mid kick, and it's a little bit of frame advantage, and you can do 4-3 or 4-forward-3, and that will put you into right foot forward or left foot forward. No, that'll put you in left foot forward. The regular version puts you in leaves you in left foot forward, and then if you do 4-forward-3, that leaves you in right foot forward. So you can pick which one you want to end up in. The range is a little meh. Like, it can't punish get up kicks, but I guess to do a quick transition into Tekken Tag 2, I've noticed in videos that they've really boosted to range on that move, so I think it will punish get up kicks in Tekken Tag 2.
Nice.
Just a FYI. You do 4-3 if you want a little bit more guaranteed damage, and you don't want to go into Flamingo. A lot of times on hop kicks or something, I'll decide. I'll vary it up. Sometimes I'll do 4-3. Sometimes I just do jabs and flamingo, depending on the situation. But either one is pretty good. And 14, like we said before, he has up forward 3+4, 4. Up forward 3+4 does a little bit of damage, but it's +1. And up forward 3+4, 4 does more damage, but it's -1. And I don't know why they did that, and it makes me mad, because why can't I have damage and frame advantage? Why can't I have my cake and eat it too, sort of thing? But, if you want damage, you do that. Just realize if you do the full string, you're at -1, so if they do jabs or something afterward, they'll beat you out. At 15, standing, he has down forward 2, but if they do a move that leaves you standing but puts them in crouch, I can't really think of something off the top of my head at the moment. Down forward 2 won't launch, so if you want more damage, you can do his forward 1+2. It's basically a mid double punch move, and if it hits them while they're crouching, it does that new stun that they put in T6 where they fall over on their back, on their butt, and then they have to tech roll. And if they don't tech roll, you can get a skyrocket or a back 3, and if they do tech roll, then you can just start some sort of pressure. And if you get that move, just talking about the move in general, if you get it on counter hit, then it does a regular stun, not the breakable stun, like the one where they slowly fall to the floor, so you can get a float juggle. And then at 17, you can do back 3, and I guess around 17, 18, if your execution speed is good enough, you can also do just frame skyrocket, but on block punishment, I usually just do back 3 because it's easier.
Yeah.
I don't have to worry about messing it up.
Yeah.
And then I guess for while standing punishment, while we're at it, -11, he has while standing 4-4. It leaves him at, I think, at like +2 or +3 or +4. So I think it's +3 or something. So if they do a while standing move, you can do a jab to stuff it out, and then you can do like a jab string into flamingo to keep going. If they stay down, you can do some sort of mid or something. While standing 4-4, they nerfed it from DR. In DR, it gave like +6 or +7, so you had a lot of pressure afterwards. But now you don't. And I think the last time I checked the Tekken Tag frame data, like when they had the first version, not the unlimited version that they have now, I think they changed it back to like +7 or something. But I don't know when they brought out the new version if they made any changes to it. So I'll just have to see.
Yeah.
But if they change it back, it's really good because it does decent damage. But also if they give the frame advantage on hit back, then it allows him, because Hwoarang's a pressure character, so he needs any opportunity to start an offense that he can. So I think it really hurt him when they took it away. And after for -14 on crouch, you can still do up forward 3+4 because it's an up forward move, just like a hop kick or something. So a lot of people don't think about that, but if you do block a -14 crouching move, that option is always available to you.
Yeah, I suppose there's not a whole lot of -14 lows out there.
There's some, and if you want to keep that in mind, it's like one of those situational things that you can keep in mind. And then -15, theoretically he has while standing 3, but the hitbox on that move is kind of wonky. So it's like a mid move, but the hitbox. Like the best way I can describe it is that its mid hitbox is really high for what it is, so it ends up whiffing on a lot of lows that put them low to the floor. So it could be a pain in the butt sometimes. I think they fixed it in Tekken Tag 2 because I know one of the things they changed with him was that the flamingo sweeps, they they when they knock down back turned like Bob's and all of the rest of the characters. Like I don't know if people have been watching the videos, but a lot of the sweeps in the game now they leave you they flip you around for no reason. So I see like what Hwoarang players do now is that they do the sweep, and since they can't get a regular float juggle, they do wall standing 3, which bounds into tag assault, and they have their tag partner do damage. So I think if it can hit the sweep, which is pretty low to the floor, then I guess the hitbox is pretty good now. That's just my guess. But so that's for 15, and then um, from 15 to like 23, he doesn't really have anything. Like at 23 or 24 is when you would do like the delayed hop kick, like the up forward neutral 4.
Yeah.
But like around 18 or 19 or 20, if you're fast enough, you can do a crouch cancel back 3 if you block a really heavy low that's not like over 23. But that's something you got to practice. You got like basically when I don't know if you've covered it in the podcast before about crouch canceling, but when you crouch cancel, you block something low or you do a low move, and then you either dash forward to come out of crouch or you sidestep up, since you can't sidestep down since you're already crouching. But you sidestep up and then you do the move you want. And a lot of characters have to do that because they don't have really good launching moves from crouching. Like Heihachi has to do it a lot. If Heihachi blocks a hell sweep, he has to crouch cancel on electric or crouch cancel 1+2 or something like that. But yeah, Hwoarang can around that weird gray area where he doesn't have a lot of options, he can try to do a crouch cancel back 3 or a crouch cancel skyrocket. So his crouch punishment isn't that good, but you can't have everything, I guess.
That's very true. Okay, so that's I think that's all I got for punishing. I did want to talk about just a little bit. We went over juggles and stuff like that, but we didn't really talk about the wall game. If I remember correctly, I think you stated earlier that his wall game actually is pretty good, and he gets a pretty healthy chunk of damage. So I guess there's two questions, obviously, that are crucial to the wall game. One, because of the flamingo stuff, I think that he has good wall carry, but I'm not 100% sure on that. And then, like, what sorts of options does he have once he gets you to the
wall? The wall carry is a little iffy because he has a lot of moves that can get you to the wall, but depending on the distance, the recovery of the move sort of doesn't let you get a juggle. But like you can do up forward 3+4/4, or he can do his generic ender of backlash right flamingo back 4 carries pretty far. It'll get you to the wall, but he won't be able to follow up. But you'll put him against the wall so you can try to pressure. But for wall combos, a lot of the wall combos end up with just launcher. You bound them. You do backlash, and then you do backlash, right flamingo, jab. So you do a right jab, and then at that point, if you want damage, you can do like a skyrocket or something. A skyrocket will hit in that situation, and if you can get it, it's like super style points.
That's true.
Yeah, and then on bigger characters, let's see. I'm trying to remember. It's been a while since I've been doing it. If you get a high enough launch, I think the biggest damage you can do is, let's say you get like a back 3 right against the wall, so you launch him up pretty high. You switch stances, obviously. Like any point I say one move that you can only do in one stance, I'm assuming I'm switching stances at some point, but you switch stances, you do backlash, jab, bound, which normally in that situation you'll do right foot forward, back 2, the punch from before, and then you'll bound them, you do backlash, and then you do right foot forward, back 3, which is the kick launcher, and that the kick will hit on the ground, so it'll do the 70% damage instead of normal juggle scaling. Since that's one of the things you can do in this game. Like if you hit them on the ground mid combo, like on a wall combo, it'll ignore the normal hit scaling and it'll do like since ground hits do 70% damage for whatever reason, but they just do 70% damage. So that's a extra chunk of damage. But if you just bound, like if you, let's say you're wall carrying them and then you hit the wall and then you bound them there, what I like to do is I like to do backlash, jab, and then he has a new stomp out of right foot forward. It's right foot forward, down four, and he basically stomps on your foot. And at that point, it'll spike them down. And then they're right in front of you against the wall. So if you can hit them with any low poke that you want. In my when I play, I do down back four, and if they block it, I'm at neutral. And then we talked about that earlier in the podcast,
Yeah.
and then I can force that sort of mix up. He has right foot forward, down back three, which is like this little slow spinning low poke. But one of the things that I found out about it that made it like a low that I like to end rounds with, or I like to pressure against the wall with, is that it's -9. So you can't while standing punish it. So if someone tries to go for a punishable while standing move, then you can punish it and then still apply pressure. And of course, at that situation, if they roll to the side, if they try to side roll to get out of the corner, you can walk with them, and then just walk with them whichever direction they're rolling. And then if you walk with them, so that's just that's just general like how to keep wall pressure. If you see them trying to move away, you just go the same way, and then you keep wall pressure, and then you can still hit them with lows or whatever. If they stay on the ground, like commonly, and then you can just do the generic open stage stuff. You can do forward, forward, three, or whatever that hit on the ground. And then if they get up crouching, then you can just do skyrocket. And then you just get a relaunch. And, at that point, if you've gotten a full wall combo and you get skyrocket, it's probably game, or you're probably maybe like one more poke or something away from winning the match.
So it almost sounds like his damage, at least his juggle damage, is more consistent without the wall. Now, normally, there's very rare cases where the wall doesn't help you, or what's the best way to put it? Like your character is far more efficient without a wall. Is that the case with Hwoarang, or is because they can't move because of the pressure, it's far better?
The wall combos are situational depending on the launch height you get. Like you can't. It's harder. It's possible, but it's harder to get a full combo off of a down forward two than it is off a back three because of the height. You can do it, but it requires stricter timing, and it's just really a practice issue. But you can. It's up to the player. Like the more you play, the more you know. Like the more it becomes muscle memory. Like when you get a specific kind of launch, just the combo will just happen, and you don't have to think about it because you've practiced so long. But I think Hwoarang is definitely one of those characters that functions better with a wall for a couple of reasons. One, because he gets a lot of good wall damage, and he has a lot of good situational wall damage. Like I've mentioned before, he has poor tracking, but his homing moves are pretty good for what they are. He has left foot forward, back four, which is like 16 frames, and it's mid, and it does a lot of damage, and it knocks down on counter hit, and it's like +4 or something on regular hit, and it knocks down on counter hit but doesn't wall splat. I don't know if they changed that in tag. It'd be really good if it does counter hit on wall splat. I mean, if it wall splats on counter hit, sorry, because that would help his wall pressure a lot more. He has right foot forward, down forward three, which is another mid homing move that knocks down, and it gives you a free forward three on the ground. And then backlash is pretty much considered a homing move, and it's high. And it's what I used to use in DR because he still had the same tracking issues, and I would just sometimes up close, like I would do wall standing 4-4, and then I would do backlash because people have a tendency to try to walk around you or something. And it's slow, but people don't expect it to see it coming, and then it hits and it does a crap ton of damage. So it's really good in that situation. It's slow, so if someone tries to beat you out, they'll beat you out. But if they're just trying to especially against the wall, if somebody is just trying to get away from the wall and you throw that out, if it hits, it does a wall splat, and it's like a 30 plus damage wall splatting move. So you've already got a big jump start on your wall damage. And if they block it, it's plus frames. I mean, it's high, but if they block it, it's plus frames, and then you keep them against the wall. So the wall is good because he gets a lot of damage from it. It's also wall stages are better for him because, in my opinion, he's really bad at chasing characters down. So if you're fighting against Lisa or Nina or Lily or somebody that has good movement or just the ability to keep you out, and this includes also a lot of Magic 4 characters like Julia and Lol and stuff like that, then it becomes really hard if the other character just wants to play turtly and make you come in, because it's hard to, like I said, it's hard to chase people down. So the wall at least lets you try to chase people down, but at a certain point, they can't get away anymore, and you can have them at least against the wall or something.
Yeah.
And
Interesting.
that applies. I think that applies for a lot of characters that have trouble chasing people down. It's like you want a wall stage just to keep somebody contained, like, and at a certain point, like there's a lot of characters like if I get my hands on you, I do damage, but if I can't get my hands on you, then I can't do anything. So
Yeah, that's always I've always been an opponent of the way that walls are right now, only because I think you can do kind of ridiculous amounts of damage. And I really like the T4 wall system more so. But there's a lot of people who at least old schoolers, back from the tag and T3 days, that just are completely opposed to walls in any way, shape, or form. But I liked them for that reason, because I saw them kind of as a, without balancing specific characters, I saw it as a balance mechanic, where for the characters that have trouble chasing other characters down, because they had to give the backdash cancel back. So many people used it. But kind of as a way to counterbalance that, you have wall stages where certain characters can't get away very much. But yeah, it's interesting. I didn't really, I never really considered him as like somebody who had problems chasing characters down. So that's interesting to hear that.
well, in my opinion, he has problems chasing people down because at range, like if you can wave dash into somebody's face and do like wall standing 4 or something, or but a lot of his low, like the main low that I would normally come in with is down back 3, which is like it's this low crushing, it's this high crushing low poke, but it's also really steppable. So basically, in my opinion, the way you shut Hwoarang down at range is that you backdash and then you sidewalk a lot when he tries to wave dash in on you. So like because you can sidestep like just from Skyrocket, you can sidestep while standing 4. The second hit of while standing 4/4 has a weird hitbox in the ground, so sometimes it'll catch, but it's not something that you can rely on. You can sidestep like down back 3. I mean, and it's funny because one of the hardest matches that Hwoarang has is actually the Hwoarang mirror match, because Hwoarang he has the flamingo sidestep, which is, it's not as good as Bex, but you can sidestep right and then do forward 3 to go into flamingo and then sidestep right again, and then you'll be on somebody's side. Or the other thing that he has is that he has back 2, which is this high move that sidesteps left. So basically, when you do the Hwoarang mirror, you're basically doing those sidestep moves, like you'll sidestep left and back 2 on a Hwoarang. And then, well, this works on everybody, but when you do that, if you get a successful sidestep left back 2, you're either on their back or on their side. So you can either throw them in that situation, and you can either try to go for a side or back throw. And if they duck, you can try to do a back 3. And if they try to duck jab you, you should be able to do down forward 2. And even though they're ducking, because they're jabbing, you should be able to counter hit them and get the launch anyway. So it's another one of those like 3-way mix-ups that Horky has. So it's just more like situational stuff. But back 2 is like a really good sidestep move in general, and I think Hwoarang players that want to play him should learn how to use it. Use sidestep left, back 2, and then it becomes an essentially double sidestep. So it's really good for getting around people and getting out of bad situations.
Gotcha. Yeah, it's I'm glad you bring that up, because really I only have one other topic that I can think of to touch on, and it has to do with like panic buttons and like evasive moves and stuff like that, because we were talking about him chasing other characters down, but I'm a little interested in how he deals with the exact opposite, like overly aggressive characters. So it sounds like back 2 is a really big go-to move in those sorts of situations to kind of get away. What other tools does he have?
Other tools that he has is you can do sidestep right forward 2, which is a mid. It's like a mid spinning punch, but it also has a very slight like sidestep right on it. So it's basically the opposite version of what you would try to do for back two. It doesn't go as far to the right, but it will give you an extra little like sidestep on moves that are steppable that way. You can always do the flamingo thing I said before, sidestep right, forward four into flamingo, and then sidestep right again, and that'll give you a little bit of distance to try to get away from the wall. He in general he doesn't really deal very well with really good pressure characters either. Like, which is part of the reason why he's considered lower tier because like it and he can't really he's bad when people want to pressure him a lot unless he can get away and create a little bit of distance. And he's bad when he's trying to, in my opinion, when he's trying to chase somebody down who's smart about it.
So like both ends of the
So
spectrum.
yeah, and so like it's you start breaking a character down and you start understanding why like people consider, like, even if you don't play the character and then someone breaks it down for you, the picture starts falling into place. Like, I can see why people don't consider him as good as other people do. But he has that. He has down forward two. Down forward two, the generic down forward two is still good because it's still the high crushing down forward two. So if somebody's jabbing you a lot, you can try to go for that. Um, his backdash is pretty average, but you can extend it by doing backdash, stance switch. So backdash, then you'll switch feet, and then you'll backdash again in right flamingo, and that it'll give you a little bit of extra space. But when people are in when people are in Hwoarang's face and he can't respond unless he gets a punish, like he's not very happy. So if it's safe pressure, then his hands are kind of tied unless he gets a good sidestep. Um, um, and then if he gets a punish, you'll do jabs into flamingo pressure. But normally the range that you want to be in, if you can't get that flamingo pressure going, is that you want to be sort of one character length away. So you want to be like, if they run in that sort of length where if they run in, you can maybe tag them with down forward two, or if they whiff a move right on your face, you can back three or just frame skyrocket. That's sort of like not touching, but maybe like one character length, two character lengths away is probably the preferred space when you're just trying to like feel each other out. And then if you can go in and get a punish into flamingo, and then Hwoarang can be the one that's dictating the offense of the match, then that's when he's good up close. But if he's defensive up close, then I think he's kind of poor.
Gotcha. Well, that was a pretty good overview, I think, of that. I think I've run out of topics for the character. Were there any like other important like things that at least like a newer player should know that maybe we didn't cover? I'm talking like must-haves. Like, hey, you definitely should know this.
They definitely should know this. Just know that if you play Hwoarang, you're picking a pretty advanced character. When I started playing Tekken, Hwoarang was the character that I started playing, and if somebody would have told me in the beginning that maybe you should pick an easier character to start off with, maybe I would have listened. And it was it was rough going in the beginning, but because he doesn't like I said, he doesn't have like the standardized while standing punishment isn't that good, so you don't get into the habit of like having like a 15 frame while standing launcher that other characters have, or sometimes your standing launchers or stuff don't reach. So it can build bad habits if you try to switch to a different character that has those things and you just don't use them. But I think playing Hwoarang teaches you a lot about trying to read your opponent, because it's how you basically live or die through mix-ups, whether they're tiny mix-ups or big mix-ups. So I think playing him in T5 and Dark Resurrection really helped me mentally as a player, trying to figure people out and help me understand that aspect of the game. I would suggest that maybe newer players pick up a more basic character. If they want to play Hwoarang, also maybe pick up a more basic character, sort of juggle the two of them, and then maybe you can so you can learn sort of the more basic aspects of the game, like having more reliable punishment and stuff like that. But you can also have Hwoarang to learn how to mind game somebody better, which I guess with Tekken Tag 2 coming out, you can do both.
Yeah,
so it'll work out. So it'll be lucky for new players then if they want to run that sort of team. But
Team TK coming back, Team Korea.
Yeah.
What any recommendations for those who like getting used to like the stance switches and stuff like that? Is it just a
Um,
practice, practice, practice sort of deal?
yeah, it's just pretty much a practice kind of thing. There's like you end up learning like a lot of little tricks about like how to use the stances and stuff. Like one thing that I found out while I was playing in VR is that for whatever reason, if you go into stance and then you let it manually cancel, like you just like unlike Beck, like the way Beck's flamingo works is that he just has one flamingo
Yeah.
stance, but he can do all his standing most of his standing moves out of it. So Beck can be in Flamingo and then just bust out with like a down forward two out of nowhere. Hwoarang can't do that. He has to like get out of stance and then he'll have his standing moves back. Uh, but one weird thing about Flamingo is that if you just let the stance manually, like let him manually drop his leg, the game for some reason inputs that as a forward. So I learned how to do things like I would do like 1-2 Flamingo, and I would do nothing. Like I would do like 1-2 Flamingo on hit, and instead of applying pressure, I just wouldn't do anything. And then I would let my leg drop, and then I would do forward two. And what happens is that the game inputs that as forward two. So I'm doing flamingo, and then I landed the leg drop, and then I'm doing a grab right away. And it's just like I have no idea why the game inputs it that way, but it's just little tricks. And I played Hwoarang for so long, and as you find those little tricks, and it's really fun and it's like rewarding to like discover new things of a character like that. And I'm gonna say I don't think I even I'm pretty sure there's still more things in this game and previous games that I still didn't discover about the character. So I think he's really fun to play. Just just new players just know what you're getting into when you pick him. So
That's definitely a good piece of advice.
yeah, I don't think he's bad, but he is a lot of work.
Very very
So
advanced. It's like,
yeah, well, not even advanced, but it's like you know just it's not even mashing, but like the sheer amount of inputs you'll be doing in a single match is just mind-boggling sometimes. Like I can't even play him for extended tournaments sometimes on some days because like no, I can't. Like I'll talk to my friends like, why didn't you play Hwoarang? I'm like, cause my hands just hurt. I just can't do like all these skyrockets and wave dashing and all these flamingo inputs. I've been pressing like 5 times more buttons than this other guy. So, but I have a lot of fun playing him.
that's
So
good. Well, we kind of talked, you threw out a few Tag 2 changes. So, since Tag 2 hasn't dropped yet, we obviously can't discuss that quite yet. But, like, are there any other, like, big things or big changes coming that we should look forward to for Tag 2? I know that, he had that unblockable trap that a lot of people were um, have been discussing because it was so strong. And I thought I heard
yeah,
somewhere that they took it out at least in its original uh, state, like the way that people were doing it, and just pretty much throwing it out willy nilly. But I mean, is that still? Are you hearing anything about that? Does that still seem like it's really really overpowered?
I've seen combos that involve using it against the wall, but I haven't seen like the open ground stuff that was really prolific back when it was thing. And I think they basically changed it so it doesn't float or anymore. I think it might just spike immediately, so you can't get the follow up. So you could theoretically still go for it, but you would just get the unblockable, and then your combo would end. So it would just end up being like normal combo damage, possibly. Like people were doing, like I remember I was watching videos from Korea, and Nee would do it with like Brian and
Yeah.
Hwoarang, and he would like launch with Brian, bound, bring Hwoarang in, do the unblockable, and then still get wall carry for a full combo. And then it was like just stupid. I thought it was stupid as hell. And like I remember other Tekken players that played other characters were like nudging me and like, dude, look, Hwoarang finally has something good. And I was like, that is retarded. I don't even want to use it. Like I was of the mindset that if the game had come out and that was still in the game, I was not going to use it because I just think stuff like that is so
Yeah,
stupid.
it was really. See, I remember when I was first seeing it, and I was. You mentioned the Brian; those were the kinds of combos that I was seeing too. And I was like, oh, well, it looks like I'm gonna have to be a Hwoarang player now, get all that fucking damage. But aside from that, are there any like big changes that you know of that might actually drastically
Yeah,
change the way you play him?
yeah. He actually got pretty drastic changes into his moveset, in my opinion. I was saying before in Tekken 6 that he had a mirror version of down 3-4, that low high that goes into flamingo. I mean, that goes switches flamingo stances. So, like you do down 3-4 in left flamingo, you go to right flamingo, and then in right flamingo you do down 4-3, and then you go back to left flamingo. They took out down 4-3 entirely. So they changed it with a new string. So now he has, out of right flamingo, he has, I hope I'm getting them right. He has down 4-4 and down 4-3, and one of them is a low high, and another one is a low mid string that just leaves you in right foot forward. Like it takes you out of flamingo and puts you in right foot forward. And I believe the low high on block. I don't think either of them are natural combo. But it looked like when I was watching earlier videos that the low high was plus frames on block, and then the low mid was punishable, but it knocked down. So it might have been useful against the wall. And then like it's the down four by itself just looked like a regular low poke. And I've seen other videos where people just go into right flamingo and then just do it to get out of right flamingo really fast, so stuff like that. So he doesn't have the option to just like infinite string back and forth out of flamingo like he did in T6. And I don't know what my opinion is of it at all.
Yeah, you haven't
Like
messed with it
I
yet. Yeah.
yeah, I haven't messed with it yet, and I personally was never a big fan of like Tekken 6 super stringy Hwoarang. I know a lot of other I know some other Hwoarang players used it a lot, but I was like I'm more of the counting frames setups kind of guy, so just infinite strings weren't my thing. But that's one change. He got a new homing move. His down forward four got changed. It's now a new mid homing move. It's like 14 frames, I think. It's kind of like this like weird hook kick. It's kind of like what Feng Wei's back four looks like, and then it has a extension off of it. It's like down forward 4-3, which is a high. But I think the last time I checked, the first hit, the mid part was punishable, and then the high was safe. So it's going to be another one of those little mini mind games of Hwoarang where it's like if you think they're going to press buttons to try to punish you afterward, you can probably stuff them out and hit them with the high afterwards. And then if they don't press buttons, then you can just do down forward four by itself, and it's a pretty fast homing move. So it definitely helps him out in my opinion. Let's see. I mentioned that the wall standing 3 hitbox, I
Yeah.
believe, is more improved. The flamingo sweeps turn around, so like flip them around, so you can't get a normal combo. Um, hmm. I don't know if they changed Skyrocket. I don't know if they made. I think I heard rumors in the beginning that they changed it to -11 instead of -12. So I think at that point only King can punish it again. Like it used to be in DR that only King could reach, and then in T6 a lot of other people could reach because it was -12. But they may have made it -11. It might be still -12. If it's -11, I think that's a really big buff for him because it lets him spam it again against a lot of other characters. And one frame doesn't sound like a lot from 11 to 12, but it's a pretty big difference. It's pretty big when you start getting into characters that can punish really well, and players that also punish really consistently as well. That's all I can really think off the top of my head. I think a lot of the changes are positive changes, in my opinion. I think he's better in this in Tekken. He'll be better in Tekken
So
Tag
no
2.
big nerfs or
And
anything like that.
well, if you consider taking away the unblockable as a nerf, but
But it was a buff that then got taken away.
yeah, let's see. I'm trying to think of anything off the top of my head, but I think that's most of the big stuff. He got like I said before, 4-3 got a range nerf. I mean, not a range nerf, a range buff. So it might be able to punish get up kicks now, and I think it got a slight damage buff. This is to me this is one of the most important ones. I've been talking about down 3-4 a lot in the podcast in Tekken Tag, and I was saying it jails on hit, and if the low hits they can't block the high. In Tekken Tag 2, it's going to be natural combo now,
Oh.
so it's going to be a low high natural combo. So basically, he's gonna get if you hit him with down 3-4, you get the damage, natural combo, and then presumably it's gonna be more frame advantage than it was on
Yeah,
block.
that's
So
what I
then
would imagine
you'll
too.
have
Yeah.
so I can't confirm or deny that, but that's what I think. And then you'd have more frame advantage to be able to force a mix up. But I think just having that low poke be natural combo now makes it so you get a little bit more, makes more of an incentive for people to duck. And then when you get people ducking, like I said, that's where Hwoarang gets his damage from. And then I was talking about before when we were talking about throws, his lows have historically been very subpar, so there's not been incentive to duck. But now I think this will be something that really makes people want to duck him more in flamingo stance. And when that happens, then maybe you can get more damage off on other things. So that was a really important change to me personally. But I think that's everything. That's everything I can remember. So
And yeah, I
I
guess
think it's like maybe
we'll just have to wait until it hits to figure out everything. But
yeah, and just in general, the fact that it's a tag game makes his potential better. Just like with other characters, like I was saying this from day one, like you have characters that are generally considered subpar, like Yoshi or Raven or Zafina, and then you put them in a tag game where they can have a character that's stronger, like a Mishima, or even a different character entirely that like just really makes their potential shine. And then personally, I think Tekken Tag 2 is going to be a really fun game to play. And I hope everybody that says they're coming back to play it does play it and stays, because I really want to see a lot of people play this game. And that's just going to be my little plug for Tekken Tag 2. Play the game. It's going to be fun. It's probably going to be good. I don't want to make promises about that, but it's going to be fun. So
well, hey, most people consider T6 to be a really good game. So it's T6 with two characters. How can you go wrong? But yeah, it'll be really interesting. I really hope a lot of people are getting hyped for it. So I certainly hope that a lot of people are gonna play it. And I know at least on like for other games, like you have all these people playing like Street Fighter X Tekken and Caliber and all that stuff. All of these other game communities that hear about Tag 2, and it sounds like a lot of those players are going to give it a try, just because it's a tag game. For whatever reason, people love their tag games. So
I also think it's launching, like the game itself is coming out in a really good time, because I feel like other communities are maybe starting to get a little burnt out on their games, like AE and Marvel and Soul Calibur. And well, Smash players haven't had a new game in a while, even though they announced it a month or so ago back that they're developing the next Smash game. So I feel like there's a lot of potential to draw in outside communities. And as long as the Tekken community is welcoming and getting people up and running and learning how to play the game, then I feel like this game has a lot of potential. Personally.
Absolutely, I completely agree with that. So on that note, I don't really have any other questions as it relates to Tekken, but I do like to end our podcast with a little bit that I call sound off, and essentially it's a section where I'm going to have you rant, because I want to know what makes Bloodhawk mad. Like, I want to know what would cause you to go over to your PlayStation and spike it into the ground. Like, I want to know, and it doesn't have to be Tekken related. It doesn't even have to be gaming related. But I want to know. I want to give you a little soapbox and let you go off. So you tell us what makes you mad.
Okay. In terms of general stuff that makes me mad, like when I'm walking around in Manhattan or something, and I'm behind a tourist group or something that's walking incredibly slow, and I just want to get around them and whatever, but somehow I can't, and I just want to like yell at them about why are they walking so slowly, and maybe punch them all in the back of the head. That makes me kind of mad, because I'm a guy that tries to get from point A to point B really fast. And if you like slow me down or whatever, I start getting really, really irritated. So that makes me mad. In terms of Tekken in general, I just hate people that tend to like disregard. Like, I hate like playing. This is gonna be playing Hwoarang or something. Like, I hate when I put somebody in a mix up that they should respect, and they just like out of nowhere hop kick me out of me or something like that. And like that's something that I just got used to. Like I remember one time I was having a conversation with an older player, and he was like breaking down like the levels of players for me, and it's like high level players, they know the mix up and they know the options, so then it becomes like a legitimate mind game. It's like intermediate players, they know that they're maybe in a mix-up, but they don't know the options. And then like low-level players don't even know they're in a mix-up, so they don't even give a damn. So they just like you'll hit them with something and you'll put them in a setup, and they're like, I don't even care. I'm gonna do Lars up 4-3. Screw you. And I'm just like, oh, that makes me so angry that you can just do that to me. And that makes me. I think that's just a general player
Player thing.
anger,
Yeah.
though. Like it's the equivalent of like fighting Daigo in Street Fighter and getting random DP'd out of something for no reason. It's like, why would you do that? Ah,
Uh,
and I don't know. And this is like something that's T6 specific, and I heard it a lot from older players that there's certain players that are like they hate the game because it doesn't have command
mhm.
capture, and it's like, man, if I had command capture, I'd own you guys, and I'd be like, dude, you haven't been relevant for like 4 years. You think command capture is really gonna help you? Like you're gonna get command capture, you're gonna lose, and then you're gonna rant about the game again anyway,
I guess I don't
or it's
understand
gonna
that. How
be
does command capture help you?
it says it like they think like command capture because I guess they don't have anybody to play with, so they need command capture to actually learn how to defend against moves or something. Like when in my sense, in my idea, I'm like just get somebody to like press buttons for you, and then you can figure out stuff on your
Hmm.
own.
Yeah,
Like
I guess I don't understand that because like I don't have a lot of players to play with around my area, but that's my reasoning. I don't say, oh, if I had command capture, it would sub in for other
yeah,
players. Oh, that's weird.
well, I guess command capture is like the crutch that you have for getting hit with random strings or something.
Hmm.
I don't know.
That's really
So, or like trying a. I can understand having command capture from like a testing setup sort of thing. Like maybe like you're playing at like 3 in the morning or something, so you can't really call your friends
yeah.
out to play, and then you get an idea like, well, if I hit them with this, and then I want them to like tech roll and do a move. That's the sort of thing that I can see command capture being useful
Yeah.
for, but not like learning random moves. You can already have like the CPU play random moves for you in Tekken 6 practice
Yeah.
mode, so I don't really get it.
Yeah. I don't understand.
And I guess the last thing that makes me mad, it doesn't even get me mad, it just makes me sort of like disappointed, is that a lot of the arguments I see people that don't play Tekken 6 is that, they think it's random, or they think the damage is too high, or it's a lot of these like throwaway or strawman arguments, because I mean, people were saying the same things about DR. I saw people say the same things about DR and T5, and then I could see random T4 or tag stuff, and I would see stuff that like that's kind of random, and it's like it's stuff like that, or it's just like the movement. They say a lot of players say that the movement isn't as good in this game, which I agree, but like the movement in 6.0, which I had the chance to play, was pretty bad. And then for BR, which is the console release version, I thought it was a lot better. And I thought sidestep is really good in this game, but a lot of like there's players that disagree, and I feel like they disagree because they never took the time to try to delve into the game. And that's why I'm saying that it's not something that really makes me mad. It's just something that makes me
Yeah.
disappointed, because I felt like if a lot of better players, a lot of the good players that stopped playing and are hopefully going to come back for Tekken Tag 2 really took the time to play T6, and travel for it and stuff, they would have seen that it was actually, it wasn't the best game, but it was like a good game.
Yeah,
So,
I guess I don't really understand the damage argument for sure because like if you look at any other game, it's I mean Caliber, Marvel, like all these other games are dealing just as much damage if not more. So
mm,
yeah, that's kind
I
of
think people just maybe rode on Rage too hard, Rage mode,
oh yeah,
and like I know Rage can give like pretty ridiculous comebacks, but at the end of the day, like it doesn't look like it's going away for Tag 2. Like they're turning it into a little bit more of the Tekken Tag
the
1
Netsu, yeah,
Rage, yeah, the Netsu, but it looks like the high damage is still going to be there, so the comebacks are still going to be possible. Like you can still maybe die from like two Paul Death Fists in Tekken Tag 2 or something like
yeah,
that. So I just I really felt that Tekken 6 could have had a bigger community and a lot more hype than it did if certain players that played like really popular, like really like not unpopular, but really obscure character. Like I think of like people like Slips were playing a lot more, like or Unconquerable. But I can also understand where like life gets in the way, and also T6 kind of came in when we had like the recession and stuff, so a lot of people probably couldn't travel.
Yeah, Slips,
But
he
I
does
hope.
not have an excuse. I know that guy. He does because he's a top level MK player, so I know he's still playing games. Unconquerable, he actually got married and had a kid, so that,
Yeah,
that one I can understand.
Unconquerable still kind of plays like in the local scene in SoCal, but I understand that he can't travel anymore if he wanted to. So, but like I hope Tekken Tag 2 like changes a lot and we get a lot of the old guys back because I remember me as a younger player, I really enjoyed watching them play and wanting to like get good enough to play them. And then when I felt I was at the point where I was good enough to play them, they all disappeared. So I got really sad. So I just hope like the old school comes back and they get really good. Like I don't even I just want to see good players play each other and I want to see hype and I want to see like people cheering at Evo, that sort of
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah, one thing that I
So
really hope that they do with Tekken Tag that they did with Caliber, that I'm sure they probably will do it, but the online mode is supposed to be roughly the same as Caliber for Tag 2, and in Caliber, I don't know if you played or not, but it's they have like a ghost mode, but
mhm.
unlike any other game, like they actually took the time to analyze. I mean, I'm sure a computer program just did it for them, but they actually broke down how often the player tends to do certain things. So, like, if you put a computer in Tekken on ultra hard, you'll never grab them ever. You're just
Yeah,
not going to grab them.
they just
Yeah,
read the inputs.
but
So
whereas in Caliber 5, the ghosts that they have in that mode, they actually only break a certain amount of grabs so many times. So like if they tend to break B, they'll break B. Sometimes they won't break at all because the inputs will just be late. Obviously the better the player, the better they are. But like it actually has tendencies, which at least for me is very exciting because like I said, I don't have a lot of players to play around here. So at least that gives me some sort of like practice option as opposed to going online or something. It's more. It's never going to be the real thing, but it's more closer than at least the computer on ultra hard is. So
yeah, I think the Caliber Ghost mode is just sort of an evolution of what was in Tekken 5
yeah,
and DR and Tekken 6. So like Tekken 5 just had the tendency like you know this character would do like electric a lot, so his we're gonna make his ghost do electric a lot for no reason. But I think hopefully if I'm right and it's just an evolution of the old systems that Namco has put into Tekken and stuff, then yeah, Tekken Tag 2 should be really good on the level of Soul
it's
Calibur.
funny you mentioned the Tag 5 Ghost stuff because like I remember there were certain stuff that was just random. Like there was when T5 first hit and we were just playing in the arcades, the console hadn't even released yet, and there was this kid who played at the arcade and he was maybe 10, did the same thing over and over and over again. I want to say he was playing Brian or something like that, and he would just do like the same two moves over and over and over again. There's no real, he's a kid, it is what it is. And
Yeah.
then you would play his ghost, and his ghost would do these like 80% combos on you. You're like, what the fuck just happened to this ghost? Why is he doing all this shit? I've never once seen that kid do any of this, but I guess it's just part of the glitch that happens with those kinds of systems. But yeah,
Mm.
yeah, Tief Tag 2 should be super hype. Really, really excited for it. And then for our listeners out there, we only have two characters left, Miguel and then the Bears. And then we'll maybe do some repeats of some of the old podcasts that maybe weren't up to snuff. To put it mildly. So with that, that's actually all I have. I do like to give the last little portion to my guests for any, shout outs or any last comments that you have. So to kind of end the podcast, I'll throw that over to you. If you have anything to say, feel free.
I just want to give shout outs to the New York City Tekken community for basically, bringing me up and helping me get better and, making me, allowing me to become a part of the community. Like, people say we're a bunch of dicks, but we're nice dicks. Like, once you get past, like, all of the teasing and the ribbing and stuff, we are a bunch of nice guys and we are, people want to travel to us, we're always welcome. we're gonna heckle you when you play or sometimes, whatever, like, casual and stuff, we're always willing to have and host new players that want to play, or out of towners, whatever. Just shout out to the Tekken community in general. I really hope Tag 2 gives us a kick in the pants and gets more players in. I just want to tell the community in general that when new players come in and they want to learn things and they want to ask questions, don't just brush them off, because I've seen it happen before, and people get frustrated because they can't find the information that they want. And I'm really glad for, like, people like you that are making these podcasts and are making more YouTube content, like Eris and Rip for their perspective sites. Uh, I just hope that when the game comes out this time around, there's a lot of easy to access information for new players to hit the ground running. And that's just it. Tekken community, we got, I'm looking at my calendar. I'm crossing off the days one by one. September 11th.
Yeah, we got less than 2 months.
Yeah, and I'm really, really excited to be playing this new game.
Absolutely. So. I 100% support everything that you just said. So with that, thank you very much for coming on the podcast. Really appreciate it. Hopefully, for those who are looking for information for Hwoarang, we filled them in a little bit. So with that, again, like I said, only 2 left before we complete out the cast, and then we'll just kind of go from there and see where it takes us. Hopefully, it won't take me a month, guys, to get another one out, but we'll see. I want to make sure that I fulfill my promise of getting one podcast for each character before I start doing reruns and stuff like that. So with that, thank you for listening. As always, we'll catch you next time, and start looking up Tag 2. We want everybody to get excited for that, so be on the lookout for that. So other than that, thank you again for coming on the podcast. Thank you all for listening, and we will catch you next time.